Unity is going bankrupt on purpose. That's the big thing, guys. So you probably heard about Unity, right? The new payment model and so on. But this video here, I will explain to you why Unity is doing what it's doing. Why are they doing what's called cannibalism, right? System cannibalism. Why is Unity going bankrupt on purpose? That's what it is about. So, for the video, guys, subscribe, press like and so on, right? And I tend to be this guy, right? Coming in like a week after the big thing. Everyone else is running to make videos, right? But I work with video games, work with economical stuff, right? Investment, so on. I work with research and analysis. So I like to sit down and, ponder a bit, right? Before I make a video and really analyze why is this happening, right? Because I feel that, I'm not wrong here, but I feel most videos you've probably seen before about Unity are people saying how, right? How is Unity crashing? But I will explain here why are they crashing, right? So hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Now let's get started then. So Unity is a game engine, right? I will give you a very brief presentation. Unity is basically the indie game engine number one. I have personally worked with Unity maybe like 4 years, maybe 5 years. If you worked for more than 10 or so years in the game industry, after those 10 years, you probably use both Unity and Unreal, right? I use both, of course. I think most people have, right? Again, if they have worked for a while. Unreal is more-ish the AAA studio, right? It's a little more expensive, a little more complicated. Unity is more the indie, but primarily is Unity used for apps, right? Free-to-play games and so on, but also use apps. It doesn't have to be games. And that's, of course, a big kicker, right? Comment to that later, but the payment model the Unity has changed is you have to pay per install, among other things. But the very obvious first part here of the analysis, right? Why is you doing this thing? Is because Unity has, again, that most of the game developers we do today are making free-to-play games, right? So for them, a free install is a massive cost, right? Because they might have like 5 million downloads, 5 million installs or whatever, right? No matter how Unity counts it, and they don't pay anything. Because you have what's called whales and kraken. That's another video. Basically, less than 1% of the actual users are paying, right, on a free-to-play game. So, of course, then that's a massive cost, right, for all these free-to-play companies. And again, then Unity is by far the biggest engine for like free-to-play games. That being said, my latest game, Unity, was not free-to-play, nor was it on an app. It was actually on Steam, PC, and so on, right? So it doesn't have to be like that. Again, Unity is more like rather more an indie developer engine, right? It usually means that, of course, that is app and so on. And also, last is put out here, you also have other engines. You have Frostbite, for example. I know a guy built Frostbite and so on, right? For example, right? That's the EA engine and so on. And those are basically, you can't buy them, right? You can't get them if you're not working on EA. Then you have Snowdrop. That is Ubisoft Massive one, etc. So I digress. So not all of the AAAs are Unreal nor Unity, but most of them are. Right? The thing is that you probably heard about all the videos is that Unity has for a very long time been quite hated by their own developers. So also one reason that I didn't want to talk about the topic in a sense is because this is Unity CEO. Ricaletto, whatever it's pronounced. He's like notoriously a bad guy. Honestly, a big reason I didn't want to make this video here, in a sense, is because I was like, well, I don't want surprised. Because if you've been a developer, right, with Unity for a while, no one likes Unity. That's the thing. It's not that you necessarily like, no one dislikes maybe the engine, perhaps, right? But everyone hates the company, especially the CEO. And you've probably heard this, I said briefly here, the CEO is the guy that was the CEO for EA when EA was the worst company in America, right? He was too evil for Electronic Arts. He's basically known as the most evil CEO in America. So I'm just like, yeah, wait, this guy? So I digress. I think it's uninteresting, right? Talking about in that sense, because people have seen to death. However, again, we're coming to why Unity is actually doing purpose, right? So you have to remember that this guy is super, douchebag CEO. Let's be honest here, right? And that again is important then, right? With Unity's system, right? Of, money and so on. But anyway, so what is cannibalism then? That's the point of this video, I suppose, right? Which we address now then. So cannibals, they eat all the stuff and so on. But the thing is that cannibalism is actually a quite common concept in free-to-play games. You don't hear about it that often, but it's a very, very common thing actually in practice. And you can hit all that stuff too. So basically, cannibalism is like a spiral system model. So let's make like a good spiral here. So imagine it's a spiral, right? So you have stuff flying out and so on. What it does is that first you make one product. Let's call it, I don't know, card game A, So then card game A sells a lot, right? And it's free to play. So you have buy stuff inside, cosmetic, buy, whatever, cards that have cooler effects, right? Whatever, and so on. Buy booster packs, right? That's card game A. Now, when you have saturated card game A, you make card game B. Now, card game B is very similar to card game A. Basically, it's an improvement, right, of card game A, but you have new micro stuff in it, right? So now you move all the players from A to B, and they have to all rebuy the stuff, right? That is cannibalism, actually. A great example of that is called Overwatch 1 and 2, or 1.5, right? Overwatch is a cannibalistic system where you make a new game that is extremely similar to the previous game, used to force people to, get the new game so you can rebuy the skins, right? It's a very, very common strategy in free-to-play markets, and I suppose Overwatch as well now. It wasn't free to play in the beginning, but you know what I mean. And it's a very, very common, honestly. it's sad. Anyway, what we see though, normally, is that every time you do this cannibalism spiral, right? So you do like internally, is that you lose users. Every time you do it, right, people of course get away from the game, right? As with Overwatch, again, great example. Every time is the first time I suppose, but the point now they of course have lost millions of users, right? And if they eventually do an Overwatch 3, again they will lose more users because they're not actually trying to make a better game, right? You're primarily trying just to get more money from your Kraken and whales, the people that are inside of your spiral, right? Which means you have fewer and fewer users every iteration. Which means that games get more and more boring, longer queue times and so on, right? Less variation of players, but you can retain the, in money game, so to speak, right? So again, this is a very common strategy, actually, in free-to-play app games, mostly, right? However, just to point out there, cannibalistic systems is not unique for video games. You see it all the time with other industries as well, right? I guess the most famous example of cannibalistic system is the iPhone, right? I have an iPhone here. It's an iPhone 5, I think. I have a 7, has another iPhone. It's a great example of cannibalistic system, right? So you make the iPhone, and then you make another iPhone, and another iPhone, right? And every time, of course, people have to buy the next one. But people buy the next one, right? But basically making this one not useless, but less good than this one, right? But it's on a slight improvement. That is actually a cannibalistic system. However, I suppose with Apple actually gets more users usually per iteration, so they're technically better than the gaming stuff, right? But mostly game companies, they lose users, right? So if it was like Blizzard or whatever, they will lose consumers, right, per iteration, but they still make some money, of course. Now, how does it relate to Unity? Well, Unity is an example of a cannibalistic investment company, right? So, like I said earlier, I do video games, right? But currently I'm a researcher, for that matter, who cares? But before this, I was been an analytic economical investment guy, right? So whatever. So I look at this stuff a lot, okay? I look at the stock market a lot and so on, right? And I, of course, have traded Unity. For full disclosure here, I have traded and bought Unity stock like 6-7 times, something like that, since it was, on the market. Since IPO, was a DPO Unity, whatever, who cares, in 2020. But my point is that I followed Unity closely, right, from an economic standpoint. And Unity has, of course, massively, declined, right, in sales, in value, and so on. Of course, you can't look fully on its maximized value on the market because it was during Corona. But it still has like lost more than half of what it started, right? Which I think is a better judgment looking on like day one Unity stock market than last day of Unity, to be fair. But my point is that how does it relate? Well, Unity, right, is basically like a terrible mobile game that is going down, right? Going out of business. It's very clear to me that Unity is losing value every year, right? Losing value both in how much money they get in, percentage-wise at least, but they're also losing market, right? They're also losing market. So Unity is going down in valuation massively the last 3 years. It's going down in just total market share, which is very important, right, for like investment companies and so on. So you do a lot of that stuff, okay? And after that, right, they have to somehow regain their value, or they have to use cash out, right? So Unity is really in this cannibalistic system. So yeah, I think they do this on purpose, right? So let me just kind of, sorry about my, I'm sorry for a little jump. In my head this is very clear, but I'm trying to explain it here. Basically, because Unity is losing money, losing valuation, losing market share for the last 3-4 years, Unreal, is coming bigger and bigger and so on, right? What Unity has left then is users that are still paying their money, but they're making less money every year. How can you make money? Well, what you can do is you either improve your product, but if you don't believe in your own product, you instead try to cannibalize on your current users, right? Trying to make more money on them, coming back to that Unity is mostly free-to-play games, right? So now we are trying to maximize the profit gain we have from our users we have left. Now, everyone else is going to leave, and these guys are also going to leave, right? But before they leave, we can maximize profit for like 1 or 2 years, and then we go bankrupt on purpose. That's also why, of course, the CEO has sold his shares, right, or at least part of it, right? So I think it's very clear that Unity is on purpose ruining their own company, right? Because they basically have realized that we are losing to Unreal. They're losing, markets on every year, right? For many different reasons. They're losing out massively. And now it's just like, how, again, then, can we maximize these last 1 or 2 years, right, of our company? So if they didn't cannibalize their own system, maybe Unity Engine would last, let's say, for 10 more years, okay? But now, because we're cannibalizing it, we're only lasting for 3 more years, okay? It's probably more like 5, and now it's 2 or 1/2 or whatever, right? But I digress. Get my point. We are lasting way shorter. However, we're obviously making more money, right, in those few months. Now, if you look at it, let's say we made $1 million per year for 10 years, or $10 million, right? Now, in these 3 years instead, we might make, let's say, $2 million. So we're making $6 million. That's less money, of course, than making $10 million. However, if your plan is an exit plan, again, right, very common in this situation, is that you just want to maximize the market, right? There's 2-3 years left, and then you leave the company, right? Sell your shares, leave the company, maximize profit for you are left, right? Bam, now you're out. And then it's better, of course, to make more money in a short period of time than making, more money, so totally more money, but in a longer time, right? If you plan to leave the company anyway, or whatever it is, investment and so on. And to me, it's very clear that the CEO of Unity is on purpose, right? Again, then, doing this so he can maximize his profit, right? And leave. Obviously, we see it with both him and the Iron Source CEO selling out a lot of stocks, right? I think the Iron Source CEO was like 20 million shares, was it $20 million? That was 12 millions at least, I don't know, a lot of money, and so on. And they clearly know that this is gonna go to shit, right, So now it's like, okay, how can I maximize my profit shares? And how can I also, of course, maximize my salary, right, or whatever, right, for the last few years? Because to some extent, investors might be like, oh, this is great now. They're making, they double their income, right, whatever, right, or, something like that. Let's invest, right, and then you can sell your shares for a higher valuation, perhaps, right? Now, lastly, I want to address one point here, though, when it comes to stock market. I mentioned earlier. I'm always very frustrated, honestly, right, when people, YouTubers and so on, talk about stock market. And I'm not talking about stock YouTubers per se, of course, but it's a general context here for this thing. So I've seen a bunch of videos, right, talking about the Unity failure. And a lot of people are like, oh, look at the stock market, it's going down like 2% or whatever. And honestly, I see this all the time, right, with YouTubers. I have no understanding of stock market, right? For example, Toei, with Total Remark case. People are like, oh, look at Toei, they're down like 2% today. Oh my god, that's like, people are selling because of this ad and YouTuber. No, they're not, okay. The stock market can very easily, go up and down 1-2% per day. It's like nothing, okay? That Unity is down like 2% the first day they announced this thing. That is nothing, okay? If Unity was down like 20% that day, then I would have cared. I mean, like Unity was at like 170 something per share like 2-3 years ago, and now it's like 30, a little bit more than 30, right? So it's fallen from like 34 to 33. when it used to be like 170. I don't freaking care, man. like honestly, I just to point that out, okay? So don't fall for that very, very shallow stock look. I'm also saying that, again, the stock probably will, of course, collapse eventually and probably gonna triple down and fall more and more, right? It might have a little cat rebound then, where if the next ER are higher then, or actually the new change is coming next year, right? So yeah, they might have a little, jump during the ER in next year, like the first earning report of 24, right? Might be much better. So that's probably when they try to exit, right? The shareholders. So I would probably short it today after that. But yeah, honestly, there's something probably going to happen. Honestly, it's probably not that bad of a strategy, I suppose, to buy it maybe before the first year. Perhaps, right, depending on what happens. But not to get too much detail in that stuff here. But I hope you get my point here. I want people to be somewhat afraid, okay, honestly, of listening to YouTubers, even me, I suppose, right? When talking about, oh, look at this stock, and look at this thing, look how much it's falling, and so on. You're like, no, it's like, no. Falling 1-2% is like nothing, okay? It depends on the company, too. And Unity has been a very volatile stock, right? I have myself traded it many times. Unity is a very volatile, up and down quickly and so on, right? So I've seen it fall like 10%, up 10% in one day, the so on. So no, it's quite the explosive stock, okay? Not anymore, I suppose, for the last half year or so, but it is historically. It's been very up and down at certain days, so doesn't say much, right? You have to really I guess my last point is that you have to really contextualize stocks, okay? If you don't understand stocks at all, my basic point is that some stocks are moving very, very slowly, up or down, right? So if they go up 2%, it actually might be a lot, right? But Unity is a stock market, it's a stock that is very, very volatile. It's very up and down. It has been historically, that I said, very much ping pong ball, right, for a few months, especially the first year, and it's very, very new in the market. So no, you can't really estimate that. Oh, it's down like 2%. Again, that's nothing. If it's down 20%, then you care, honestly, about Unity. It's way too uncertain valuation on the market. That context actually matters tremendously. So honestly, again, don't listen to YouTubers talking about stocks, okay? Especially on that thing, because they usually have no clue, and they look at the percent and say, oh my god, it's this much, but it doesn't matter. Okay, you have to look at historically, how much float it has, how many shares are outstanding. You have to look at maybe if they have some kind of limit and they can sell and so on. For example, if you're the CEO, you probably can't sell your stocks the first day when they DPO or IPO, right? You have to wait for maybe half a year or a year or so. For example, maybe the CEO couldn't sell all his stocks, right? I don't know his contract, so there's a lot of stuff you have to look at. Maybe he was the one that made it go down because he could finally, exit and so on. There's a lot of stuff, okay? That's not a video, guys. But I'm just saying that don't listen to YouTubers with stocks, okay? They're all morons, basically. Okay. But anyway, guys, if you like the video, subscribe, press the like button, and have a great day.